how did you approach this material? Being so close to, I mean, this is a very detailed story, and in the way it looks, the way it's designed, the costumes, everything. How did you approach the character?
Well, for me, you know, there was so much there in the script. It was so epic. You know, Gary had created this world, you know, traveling between, you know, the 1860s to the trial in 1948, and just the scale and the legacy of slavery and the fight for freedom, I initially just found, you know, breathtaking. In terms of researching, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the real Jones County in Mississippi, met with some historians there that toured me around. I got to visit Newt and Rachel's grave site, which was very special. And, you know, reading around the period, watching every documentary I could lay my hands on. You know, not being American, I didn't study the Civil War at school, so I didn't have, you know, natural, you know, history lessons to draw on. I had to sort of do my American history from scratch. You know, reading inspiring slave narratives like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Jacobs, working with a dialect coach. You know, there was really so much to draw on. And then just being in New Orleans, I mean, even though the movie's set in Mississippi, there's an energy about being out in those swamps, which you could almost be in any time. I mean, you see an alligator drifting by on the bayou and it feels prehistoric, you know, and when you're really out there in the middle of nowhere, having to get a boat to the set, you can quite easily imagine that you're in, you know, however many, couple of hundred years ago. So, yeah, there was a lot to draw on.
Well, I think that's just terrifying anyways. Like, oh yeah, we gotta wait for the alligator to pass before we do this scene.
Well, there was the snakes were more terrifying. The alligators kind of kept themselves to themselves, but, you know, the snakes would be under a log, literally like in that scene, under a log, you know, so seeing on the call sheet, Snake Wrangler, was, you know, one of those surprises.
Well, I also like the relationship that you shared with Matthew. This is a really beautiful relationship, and it's very well. You guys have wonderful chemistry.
Oh, thank you.
Can you talk about finding that with him? It's lovely to watch.
Yeah, well, talking with Gary, you know, we were very aware of the pitfalls and of the dynamic of a slave and a free man and what that relationship would mean, and also, you know, Rachel's history of abuse, and so how delicately we wanted to approach this relationship and make sure that it was always depicted out of respect first, you know, and knowing that really, you know, this really was a loving relationship, that obviously they had a child together. He deeded her 160 acres of land, making her, you know, not just one of the few landowning, you know, women, you know, let alone African-American women of the period, and the fact that they were buried, you know, next to each other. So, you know, we always knew that this was a very respectful, loving relationship. And working with Matthew, you know, who's so detailed in his preparation and so focused and so in the character, it was very easy to kind of be in that world. And as I say, Gary sort of created a very authentic place for us to do that.
Did you take anything as an actress from Rachel?
Did I take anything? I mean, so much inspiration, her courage, her thirst for knowledge, I think I share with her anyway. You know, her bravery in trying to learn to read. And just, I guess, just the courage to fight for your freedom. I think there's many ways in which you can fight for your freedom, and it's ongoing. But you know, from literacy to physically fighting, learning to fire a gun and all of that in the battle scenes. So for me, really, it was the courage that inspired me.